our next doc who maybe needs to promote himself as your next baby daddy. And
Who's
you think
daddy?
I'm laughing. This is an Indiana fertility doctor who was arrested and charged when he decided to do double duty and use his own sperm to become his patient's, I'll say it, baby daddy. He reportedly told patients he was using sperm from donors in medical school, but instead giving his own. Was accused of fathering 8 children with women in the 70s and 80s. Back then it was different. Live sperm was used back then rather than frozen. And I guess, and this is all reportedly, if he didn't have other sperm, he would just use his own. And about 50 times he used his sperm when a donor sperm was not available. Obviously this is incredibly inappropriate.
Do you think?
But what is the, I am, you know, in terms of a sperm donor from medical school, an anonymous sperm donor, I guess what I'm getting at, back then, things were very different. So just some random sample from a medical school where, you know, nothing, is it that different is my question. Again, this is back many decades ago, before we had sperm banks, some would argue that the process now is still extremely flawed. But back then it was I think it was a lot more cavalier.
But I also feel like, you know, he impregnated so many, or he was going to impregnate so many women. I think they limited it, that you could only do that 3 times. Because what if you meet somebody who actually you're related to? I mean, if you populate too much of the world.
But I don't get it. He pled not guilty to 2 counts of obstruction of justice for misleading authorities. So so using his sperm, they're not even charging him for that.
Yeah.
We very recently had the Sperminator on our show, and one of the reasons that he said he gave his sperm freely to women is he had a bit of a
altruistic,
but also I really liked him. I liked him a lot, but he had a healthy sense of self. And you know, this doctor, for all we know, he wanted to help his patients have babies, and he's like, well, you know, my sperm's as good as anyone.
Travis, he pulled the wool over me too, that you couldn't help but liking the Sperminator. And he makes it sound like he thrives on the attention, he thrives on this.
But there has to be something up here that makes you think that, okay, I'm just gonna, you know, give my sperm to every possible woman.
There's a loose garden hose in there going.
I mean, it's like they think that people should be so happy to have my sperm, you know? That's the sad thing.
It's an interesting case to say the least. And thankfully, and again, we've talked earlier this season about the topic of sperm banks and how accountable they are, because there's not a lot of governing across different sperm banks. And one sperm bank may do a ton of testing, may be very vigilant in terms of screening sperm donors, and others we know don't do that good of a job. It really is an interesting time. Certainly we'll keep people abreast of this story.